It began with a dream, a simple dream, taking my two favorite things in the world and combining them together. Surely nothing bad could happen. Come back after the credits to see why I have to review Dudley Do Right and why I am just so disappointed. Welcome to B Movies with Booze. I am your host, Mr. B, and today we are finally going to take a look at the film Dudley Do Right. It is a B movie for a lot of reasons, and we are going to get into them. But first and foremost, it's time for an emotionally scarring backstory. You see, as a lad, I once imagined a world where chocolate and peanut butter could play together. And when I combined them for the first time, and the first time I ate that delicious Reese's peanut butter cup, who are not a sponsor, by the way, it was so good and so delicious. I decided that chocolate and peanut butter would go great everywhere. And so they do. You put it in ice cream. You put it in cake. You put it in everything. It's delicious. And I thought, we should combine other things together to see if they work, things that we like. So I combined bacon with chocolate, which is fabulous. I've combined peanut butter with Nutella. Well, that's kind of like chocolate, but it's hazelnut, so we'll let that go. I've combined many, many things over my very, very long life. I was very excited when Dudley Do Right came out. I remembered it coming out when I was about 19 years old. The thing that excited me about it was this was the golden age, if you will, of Brendan Fraser. He was in the Mummy films. I really like the Mummy films. I know people don't. That's okay. We can discuss that some other time. But I loved the Mummy films. Brendan Fraser was this family-friendly, funny actor in this movie, so I was pretty excited about it. Now, full disclosure, I did not see George of the Jungle until later, so I went into Dudley Do Right not knowing what I was going to expect. Combining Brendan Fraser with a couple of other elements, such as I loved Dudley Do Right, the cartoon, growing up. As a matter of fact, I actually studied melodrama in college and know a whole lot about melodrama. And so before I even take a look at this movie, in this first part of this review, we're going to look at the history of melodrama and why Dudley Do Right just does not work out. So the first thing I want to look at is, what is a melodrama? For those of you who do not know, a melodrama is an overdramatic play, back in the 19th century, an overdramatic play with overdramatic characters. The purpose of this is, it's actually very much about audience interaction. One of the key elements in a melodrama is the breaking of the fourth wall. So, for example, melodramas are full of what we call asides, where the character will break with the action in the play, so everyone will freeze, and the character steps forward, usually puts their hand to the side of their face, and delivers an aside to the audience. They break the fourth wall. Of course, there are many different kinds of characters in a melodrama, and all of them break the fourth wall in different ways. And so part of a good melodrama was interacting with the audience and breaking the fourth wall. So that is one of the first key elements, is there's an interaction there. The audience actually boos and hisses for the villain and cheers for the hero and the heroine. Those are elements of a melodrama. I actually got to see some melodramas performed at the Showboat Becky Thatcher in Marietta, Ohio. And part of the performance was that the audience, we throw popcorn at the bad guy, we cheer for the hero, we yell, "Oh no, stop!" to the villain. There's this interaction that plays very, very well in melodramatic theater. So that is an element that when I see a movie based on a melodrama, of course I can't actually throw popcorn at the television screen. Okay, I could, but then I'd have to clean it up, and I really don't want to do that. That is one of the things in melodrama, is this audience interaction. It doesn't translate to the screen very well, but sometimes it does. So that's the first element of a good melodrama, is audience interaction, breaking the fourth wall. The second is the stock characters. And yes, stock characters are typecast. We know that. That's okay. It's not an issue. That is what you expect in a melodrama. And so there are stock characters in melodrama. What are those stock characters, you might ask? Well, it's actually very, very simple. The first kind of stock character is the villain. Yes, you might say, why isn't the hero first? I played a lot of villains in melodramas, so I am used to this. I know quite a bit about being a villain in a melodrama. The villain. There are a couple of characteristics of a villain. First, the awesome handlebar mustache. I mean, you have to have a handlebar mustache. Can you be a villain without a handlebar mustache? Sure. Can you be a villain with like a hipster beard? No. You have to have the epic late 19th century handlebar mustache. That is one of the key elements of a villain. The other key element, of course, is that the villain dresses in black. It's very simple that way. You know who the good guys and the bad guys are. So the villain dresses in black. The villain almost carries himself as a hunchback. Okay? The villain doesn't puff out his chest. He's very slippery. He's very slimy. That is what a villain does. A good example of a modern villain would be Dr. Doofenshmirtz from the Phineas and Ferb cartoon. No, he doesn't wear black, but the way he slouches, the way he carries himself, those are some very good villain qualities, and it's one of the things that makes us like him so much. The Ice King from Adventure Time is another good example of a melodramatic villain. Of course, in true Adventure Time fashion, there's always more to the story with the Ice King. Having said that, when you first meet the Ice King, he comes across as evil and a little crazy. He does have a mustache, but he also has the beard thing going. All of that aside, the next important element of a villain is the evil laugh. You have to have the evil laugh. You have to have the laugh. One of my favorite evil villain laughs would have to be Mike Myers' portrayal of Dr. Evil in the Austin Powers movies. Dr. Evil is a very melodramatic kind of character. He's the villain. You expect to hear him do the evil laugh. There's a scene where all of the evil villains laugh. So let's review a villain. They are awesome with a handlebar mustache. They carry themselves very slimy, very slippery. And of course, they have an epic evil laugh. And they wear black. That is a villain. You do those things in a melodrama and you pretty much have being a villain down. Our next stock character is the hero. The hero wears white. He's proud. He carries himself in a proud manner. He walks into a room and he just owns the room. Dudley Do Right in the cartoon was very good about doing this. He was very good about being, I am the hero. Think Buzz Lightyear from the Toy Story. That is the typical stock hero. That's what you want in a melodrama. You want your hero, and you want your hero to be, let's say, a little more simple, maybe easily duped, whereas the villain is conniving and slippery and all around evil. The hero is good to a fault. Not quite lawful good if you're going to use a Dungeons and Dragons type alignment, but the hero is probably lawful good. Lawful good to the effect of, I'm not going to notice the things around me. The hero usually is clean shaven. So those are your two big things that you have to have for a successful melodrama. You have to have a hero that is a hero. You have to have a villain that is a villain. And of course, you also have to have the heroine, the hero. Do not confuse heroine with heroine. It's kind of like if you put your car keys in your car keys. Yeah, something like that. The heroine, the female hero, if you will. And yes, she is usually, one, a damsel in distress. Think Princess Peach from the Super Mario Bros. Series. She is a damsel in distress. She also might be a little bit crazy, but that's a whole nother... Just watch game theory for that. Don't listen to me. Okay, so the heroine, she is usually pristine and innocent and sweet and good and all the sappy things that you expect to find in a larger-than-life heroine. She is usually the love interest of the villain and the hero. That is the central conflict that you see in most melodramas. The hero and the villain are vying for the heart of the heroine. And sometimes the heroine understands that the villain is evil. Usually by the end of the play she does. Maybe not in the beginning, but the heroine always ends up with the hero. There's never a doubt there. So those are your three main stock characters. There are a few other characters. Of course, you have sidekicks, both on the villain side, and you have sidekicks usually on the hero side. In the case of Dudley Do Right, of course, it is his horse. Snively Whiplash, the villain in Dudley Do Right, he has some sidekick characters, and they're okay. Before I forget, also Snively Whiplash, in this case, has a bunch of minions. That is a standard thing with the villain. And speaking of villains, I would be remiss if I left out Gru from the Despicable Me movies. He is a good example of what a villain should be. Let's think about sidekicks here, side characters. The hero, of course, Dudley Do Right has horse. That's true. He also ends up having kind of another stock character, which is the aged old person who helps them out. In this case, he's played by Eric Idle. That's when I get to the formal review, we'll talk more about that. But I wanted to make sure I brought up side characters. The side characters help move the plot along. Now, many melodramas have many different love triangles going on. A good melodrama will have several different love triangles going on. Not just between the hero and the villain and the heroine, but other side characters may even have triangle love relationships going on. And what that does is it brings different side plots together. You can attack the comedy in different ways. Whereas the hero and the villain have to be a stock certain kind of behavior with the heroine, your sidekick characters can behave in different ways, and your sidekick characters can create different kinds of love triangles and conflicts within the play. Those are your stock characters that you have for a melodrama. So what makes a good melodrama depends upon what you like. Is it great theater? Are you going to see these epic dramatic performances? No. The point of a melodrama is that it is a comedy. One of the reasons we like sitcoms these days is they are a draw-off of the melodrama style of stock characters. These days, we tend to let them grow and change. Sometimes the hero becomes an anti-hero. Sometimes the villain isn't as bad as you think he is. Sometimes the heroine isn't sweet and innocent. And no, I don't mean just Game of Thrones, although, boy, those characters in Game of Thrones, that is a whole nother... We don't even have time for that. So, having looked at the different kinds of characters, what do we want to see in Dudley Do Right? Let's just go ahead and talk about Dudley Do Right. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to click like and subscribe.